It's going.
Yep.
We'll call a meeting to order at 6:30. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag for the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
All right, Karen Winchester,
Here.
Mark Freeman,
Here.
Derek Burton.
He's absent.
Oh, he's absent, right. Steve Ruth,
Here.
George Cullis,
Here. Motion to excuse Derek Burton. He is at a conference for his job.
Support.
Motion by Cullis, support by Winchester. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now, Chair would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Support. Motion by Winchester, support by Freeman. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 4-0. Now, the consent agenda. All items listed under consent agenda are considered to be routine and non-controversial. They do not require discussion by the Township Board and will be approved by one motion. There will be no separate discussion. If discussion is desired on an item, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will automatically be moved to the last item under new business. Chair would entertain a motion.
I'd move to approve the consent agenda.
Support.
Motion by Winchester, support by Ruth. Roll call, please.
sorry, it's my first time.
Yep, just go through the call each name.
Yes, I'm sorry. I think I wrote absent on the wrong person.
Burton's absent.
Yes, I did then. Okay, sorry about that. Mark Freeman,
Yes.
Steve Ruth,
Yes.
Karen Winchester,
Yes.
George Cullis.
Yes. Motion carries 4-0. This is Courtney Kostner with us this evening. It's her first time trying this out, so we appreciate your energy, effort, and your time. We are going to move on to a public hearing. Chair would entertain a motion to open for public hearing.
So moved.
Motion by Winchester. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Freeman. We have a motion to open public hearings for 2022-23 Holly Township proposed budget and for the annual redetermination confirming the special assessment district for the purpose of the fire and emergency service and supporting millages. If someone would like to speak in public comment, please remember to approach the podium, introduce yourself, and give your address. Do we have anybody for public hearing? Mary?
I guess I would like to, Mary Blanchard, 3444 Old Creek Drive, Holly, Michigan. I would like to clarify, is this actually going to be voted on tonight for the budget, or is this a budget workshop?
This is a public hearing. It will be voted on tonight. It's on the agenda.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify. Was there actually a budget workshop held?
We did not have one this year. There were very few changes in the budget. The only two things would be on the salary, which was discussed last year. This is the third part of that program. And then there's one other thing that changes job description. And with a workshop, you can't make a decision. That needs to be done here, so it'll be handled here.
Okay. I would like to speak on staff raises. This is not directed personally at any staff member or board member. In a 4-year time span from 2018-2019 budget through this proposed budget of 22 to 23, it appears that the supervisor, clerk, and treasurer will increase their base salary by approximately $15,000. Between 2020 and 2021 into 2021-2022 budget, the deputy clerk's salary rose $14,142, and this year is proposed to rise again by $4,065. The code enforcement assistant supervisor project manager had a raise between 2021 and 2022 of $12,894, and this year's budget would raise the base salary again to $45,040, an increase of $3,640. The deputy treasurer did not receive as an extravagant a raise, with $2,467 raise in 2022 budget, and this year's proposed budget would increase this salary by $6,371. As far as I know, these salaries do not include insurance, retirement, and other benefits. Is that correct? Okay. I would like to object to the fact that these continuous raises are being given in an extreme, what it seems to me is an extreme measure, without learning of any additional services and skills that are being involved. Raises based solely on time served and parity to other municipalities should not be happening every single year, especially when many of your stakeholders are still feeling the effects of the economic downturn caused by the pandemic and our current drop in 401ks and stocks. Holly Township is already struggling to provide help to residents when it is requested. We need to stop giving everything to raises and more to citizen services. Thank you.
Is there anyone else for public? Pat?
Pat Feeney, 210 Franklin Street. All I can say is BS on the raises. There's nothing you've done to improve the township. There's no extra services. If I was an HR manager, I would simply say that one of your members, I would say, you know what, there's definitely room for improvement because of your sloppiness in your job, the total disregard for we won't go there, but I'll just say sloppiness on job. Do deserve a cost of living raise. You know, this parity bit. What have you done? Since I was on the board, there's been no services added. There's no value added to, you know, there's no more work. Anything that's been taken on is nothing that falls into the job description of each individual. Now, you know, I can hear about the building department. When I was on the board, we were talking about maybe the possibility of separating that and putting it back on like it was at one time. But in reality, there's been a steady growth in building, but there hasn't been enough to warrant an office, so I realize that. But to put that on that deserves an increase, I think it's just absurd myself. But one question I did have is, so you're you're changing the name of the deputy treasurer and the deputy clerk to administrators. Is that taking the right away from future clerks and treasurers to appoint their own person as a deputy one, or is it just a name change? Because if it is taking away those positions, or I shouldn't say taking away positions, creating administrative positions, and in the future the clerk and the treasurer could still appoint deputy treasurer and deputy clerk, that would be adding another layer of expense onto the taxpayers. For what reason? But I mean, it could be simply explained away that you're just changing the name of it, which to me sounds like you're kind of clouding it. So if the next treasurer or the next clerk comes in and they say, we want our own person in there, well, you're firing, you know. I mean, is there an explanation? Is that just a change in name, or is that a new position? That's what I'd like to see answered, but there's absolutely no call for what you got. And parity, do you have the workload what those people do? That's the parity, not just because, well, we have the title. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment, or for public hearing? Going once, twice? Chair would entertain a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Support. Moved by Winchester, support by Freeman. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We don't have any presentations this evening. We will go to reports. Derek Burton, as I said earlier, is at a conference in Grand Rapids for his job. Trustee Ruth, do you have anything to report?
Do not.
Haya had their awards.
They did have awards.
Banquet.
Was it just yesterday or day before yesterday?
It was last week.
Was it? Oh, yes, it was.
Tuesday or Wednesday. One night I was there. It was.
I did not attend.
It was a nice crowd. There were some kids there that were really incredibly surprised and excited to get those awards. So it was a nice evening. Treasurer Freeman.
I can report that we received from Oakland County payment for all the delinquent taxes, and those have been dispersed. That completes the settlement of the 2021 tax year. And I also want to report that Deputy Treasurer Heupel sent an email to all the members of the board. I believe you've all received that, explaining her position going forward. And that's, I think, self-explanatory. Just wanted to report that she had done that.
Okay. Anything else?
That's it.
That's it. Clerk Winchester.
Yes, absent voter ballots will be ready for pickup on June 23rd. The application should be mailed out anytime soon, so if you'll get automatic if you're a permanent absent voter, and that's it.
Okay. For the Supervisors Report, you'll notice the screen behind me is set at a meeting. This is the Finance Committee for Oakland County Commissioners. We have been working on the sewer project for the Dixie Highway Corridor in conjunction with Groveland Township and Brandon Township and Ortonville. And this project we started looking at, it was started before the pandemic, so it's been about 3 years. Part of that process, we had already put forth some money from our ARPA funds for the study that was done. Now, Genesee County is at the point where they want to open and build the Kearsley Interceptor, and we need capacity out of that interceptor if we want sewers on Dixie Highway. They want to do it right away. We didn't have the funding. We went to the county. I've worked very closely with Alyssa Slotkin. I want to give her credit where credit is due, because I know I was on her constantly, and today she came through with flying colors. I want to share with you that moment with Alyssa Slotkin, and I want to thank her. If you think about it, we lose her as our congresswoman due to the redistricting, and she won't be here next year. She could have easily just dropped us, and she didn't. I want to go ahead and let you see that clip.
The first agenda item is moved by Commissioner Spitz, seconded by Commissioner Gershenson, and this is our assisting American Rescue Plan Act local recovery funds for Northwest Oakland Sanitary Drainage District Phase 1.
This is us.
And to discussion, we have our U.S. Congressionalwoman Alyssa Slotkin on the Zoom here. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Good to see you. You're very, very tiny on my screen, so I will assume that means, William, I can go ahead. Thank you for allowing me to come and speak in front of you all. This is only the second time I've testified or contributed in front of one of our county commissions, and I do it on issues that I feel extremely passionate about. I really appreciate, William, your efforts in focusing on the Northwest Oakland County Sewer Project, a project that deeply affects the part of Oakland County that I represent, Holly, through Lake Orion, Ortonville, Brandon Township, Groveland Township, and Dixie Highway in general. I'm here to ask for your support in contributing $10 million from the federal ARPA monies to purchase the capacity to join with Genesee County in this sewer system development project. We really see this as a once-in-a-generation opportunity for Oakland County's parks and smallest communities with really limited resources and failing septic systems to join a new sewer system at a fraction of what it would cost if we wanted to do this independently. And I would just note that there is an urgency here. If Oakland County doesn't commit to the project, Genesee County has been very open with us that they will move forward on their own, and they will build a system that precludes Oakland County from joining in the future. I think what's particularly interesting to me is that this project would help create what some are calling a recreation corridor along Dixie Highway. We already have the Holly Recreation Area, the Groveland Oaks Park, we have the ORV Park out there, and just do not have the septic systems available to actually encourage the economic development that we think should go along with being this recreation corridor. It also will be transformative for Holly Township, Brandon Township, Ortonville, Groveland, all communities where I've spent a lot of time with those town supervisors, with those mayors, with those local electeds, where they just cannot attract new businesses, new restaurants, new anything to their downtown areas because the septic system is failing, not available, et cetera. And beyond the economic development, the environmental impacts of this septic system, I do not think should be underestimated, not to mention that, of course, the union jobs that would come with doing this kind of an upgrade. I think the thing that I know has been, I've discussed this with Jim Nash, I'm glad to see him on here today, that it's just a kind of a boat anchor around our communities to not have this kind of development. I think ultimately this kind of large project is a cost savings for the county, not just because of the economic development, but because of the revenue that will be produced from the businesses that we believe are poised to engage should they have proper water. I think just to demonstrate that I put my money where my mouth is on how I believe in this project, members of Congress are allowed this year 15 community projects, specific projects that I alone can select and advocate for through our appropriations projects, our appropriations process. Last year we got 10, and I got all 10 of those funded. This year, because of my belief in the project, we have picked this project as one of our 15 to the tune of $1 million for the engineering design of the project. So I'm in this, even though, quite frankly, no matter what happens after January or after December, I will not represent this area. That's how important I think this project is. I think it's not to be missed. I know that Genesee County is literally waiting with bated breath for this meeting and for taking it to the full commission. And I just appreciate the time and wanted to put my energy and my interest behind it, and I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. And I know you have staff on hand if you have to jump off, because you're actually gracing us with this time because you are late for your meeting that you chair. I have a hearing I'm chairing, but thank you for the time, and Alexa and Laura are in the room. We're big believers in this, so I appreciate everyone's serious consideration, and have a good one. Yeah, thank you. Thanks, guys. Commissioner Nash.
So, thank you. I think it's important to understand. We've had hours of meetings. I want to thank Trustee Ruth. He sat through many of those. They're not always exciting meetings, but as you try to hammer out a project of this, we're looking at a project that'll be upwards to $100 million. But to get that capacity, nothing can move forward. I've had multiple phone calls with her, getting her help to get the county to move in this direction. I can tell you what happens next in that committee is they have some conversation about it. Commissioner Nash speaks. They ask some questions of Brian Coburn, who's the project manager. The end result to this is They voted unanimously to support it, 8-0. It will now go to the county commissioners. But that was a big, big day. That's $10 million that was desperately needed in order for this project to continue to move forward, and we were under a time crunch. The county received $248 million in ARPA funds. This is roughly 4% of that they dedicated today. So I wanted the public, both here tonight and those watching on video, to be able to see that, because to me, I'm very thankful that she did that. That goes a long way. She could have walked away because she's not going to be here next year. So thank you, Alyssa, for that. That's a part of my report for that. We are moving forward. The engineering study is coming to an end, and they'll be here for presentation for the farmstead and what we've looked at there. The architect will be coming forward with his findings for the Township Hall. All of a sudden, I'm at a loss for the term.
Needs assessment.
Needs assessment, thank you, for the needs assessment. So those two things are on target. We will now go to public comment. Public comment on agenda items only. Members of the public can address the board on agenda items only. Once recognized by the supervisor, comments are limited to a maximum of 3 minutes. The board may extend this time by a majority vote. Prior to addressing the board, members of the public shall state their name and address for the record. A second public comment is available after new business for all other comments. Thank you for your cooperation. Is there anyone for public comment? None appearing. I will go on to old business. Purchase offer on the 49-acre parcel. Our real estate representative, Dennis Anise, is with us this evening. Would you like to present what we have? Sure, yep. The podium, sir, is yours.
So Dennis Neese, 2359 West Shiawassee in Fenton, Berkshire Hathaway. We have highest and best on 2 offers, and one of the gentlemen, usually my first name, Chris, he wants to develop the property, and
By develop,
develop means putting in housing,
Okay.
whatever the township agrees would work well. It has to be approved by the township, and some of the things that they need to look at is, can they hook up sewers into the village, et cetera, et cetera. Keith, as far as I know, the other offer, he wants to put a farm in there. They're both, upstanding, great people. However, recently, Keith has told me that they have another piece of property that they want to, keep as a reserve. So until that offer either is good or bad, they can't accept or go through with the one that they wrote a few weeks ago.
so what you're saying is our offer is number 2.
Yeah,
With that.
I am.
Okay, I just want to clarify that. To answer the other question you asked regarding the water and sewer from the village, we've had a preliminary conversation. That property actually adjoins the village in the back, and the village has brought water and sewer into, what's the name of the sub on the southeast corner of Academy and Fish Lake? Preserves of Riverside. So this property is south of the preserves, but they've already got water and sewer into that. So
But there's also water and sewer all the way to Bars Leaks.
that's why I said it connects to the village in the back, and it's
Right,
over here.
and there's an
So-
easement with this property that goes
So
to
it's-
Rose Street.
Right.
So it appears to be doable.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, they would have to meet and come up with
Sure.
an agreement,
Of
but,
course.
okay. Does the board have any questions? You will notice you have 2 resolutions in front of you. One of them has handwriting across the top. It says resolution to be approved if purchase offer is accepted. If you look down on the bottom of that, it says this 18th day of May. The date got changed, so the actual one we want to look at is the one without handwriting, because that one says 15th day of June. That's why you have 2. So the one with the handwriting on the top you can disregard. Pardon?
Yeah, it was just to remind myself to write the same note on top of the new one, and I forgot.
That's okay. So we just clarified it there. Any thoughts from the board?
I would move to approve the purchase offer from Chris McCarthy for parcel 0133303031.
There's a motion on the floor to accept the purchase agreement from Christopher McCarthy on, how come you can see the number and I can't?
The first page.
And how much? I guess that should be in there too.
409,000.
It's 409,000. It's on the second page down where it says purchase price, deposit, default payment, so on and so forth. Is there support?
I'll support.
Motion by Winchester, support by Freeman. Any further discussion?
Okay, so we have purchase offer on the 49-acre parcel, then we have an actual resolution. So these are two separate votes.
Yes,
The first vote is to accept the offer. The second is passing a resolution for the authorization of the sale.
correct.
Correct.
We correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No, not for me.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Steve Ruth,
Yes.
Karen Winchester,
Yes,
Mark Freeman,
Yes?
George Cullis.
Yes. Motion carries 4-0. Now, Chair would entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2022-11. Resolution authorizing for the sale of real property parcel ID number 133-300-33 or -031, Holly, Michigan.
I'd move to approve resolution 2022-11, resolution authorizing the sale of real property and parcel ID number 0133303031.
So moved? Okay. Motion by Clerk Winchester. Is there support?
Support?
Support by Trustee Ruth. Any further discussion? Could we have a roll call, please?
Karen Winchester,
Yes,
Mark Freeman,
Yes.
Steve Ruth,
Yes.
George Cullis.
Yes. Motion carries 4-0. Moving on to new business, election electronic poll book replacement proposal. Karen?
this is, we have.
Oh, excuse me, Mr. Neese, we thank you for being here. If you want to sit by and watch, you're welcome to.
I appreciate it. I actually will leave, but I do appreciate your time. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
thank you.
So at the election, when we check people in, we use an electronic poll book. It's a laptop and it has certain criteria the state requires from us. Those laptops are acting up, they're ready to be replaced. And so this is our IT company that gave us the quote per the state of Michigan for the replacement of those.
Now, so the public understands, when you say the quote is per the state of Michigan, you want,
The quote meaning the criteria that the laptop has to have.
okay.
And the USB drives also have to be encrypted. So that's why there's a $40
So this quote's a
charge for
total of
that.
$3,524.
Yes.
Chair would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Clerk Winchester. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Trustee Freeman. Any further discussion?
Just a question, these are only going to be used during election,
Yep,
the laptops?
that's the only, yes.
Okay, so these laptops are strictly for checking in the voter.
Yes,
They have nothing to do with the actual voting machines.
nothing to do
Correct.
with it, correct.
And just for the benefit of the public, voting machines are not connected to the internet.
No, they are not until you close the polls. Then it sends the results to Oakland County. Yes.
Right.
And
So the reason I'm saying that is because there's been a lot of controversy over the last election. And so I have done some research on my own also, and so that's where I found that some people have made accusations that the voting machines were hacked. You cannot hack a voting machine because it is not hooked up to the internet.
And then so they do like anything that happens during the day. Unusual things happen. People walk out with their ballots. They decide not to vote them. All that's documented in this to the state, and those drives go to the county that night, election night as well.
Right.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor to approve the purchase of 4 laptops through IT Right at a total cost of $3,524. Motion by Clerk Winchester, supported by Treasurer Freeman. Roll call, please.
Mark Freeman,
Yes.
Steve Ruth,
Yes.
Karen Winchester,
Yes.
George Cullis.
Yes, motion carries 4-0. Now, Resolution 2022-12, Holly Township General Appropriations Act and Budget. You have the budget in front of you. There are 2 parts, the salary portion. You have the worksheet in front of you. This is a project that was started back in 2019, before the pandemic. As a matter of fact, that was when Mr. Feeney was on the board, and he voted yes to accept the report that was turned in by the company.
Not that we had to implement it.
So we started the implementation of this. The report is dated July 1st of 2020. We got caught in the pandemic, and if you remember correctly, that year we froze all the salaries and did not authorize cost of living, and that was because we had been told by the legislature that we might have to anticipate reduced revenue sharing because of the lockdown. A year later, we found out that not only did we not receive less revenue sharing, but we actually received more revenue sharing. So in the last budget workshop, when we discussed this topic, we came back to the approval process, and the decision was made that we gave all of the salary increase to the employees while giving only a part of it to the elected officials, with the understanding that if the revenues continued, we would correct the rest of it in the next year. Some of these, according to this wage report, we were in some cases 38% underpaid for those departments. One of the decisions that was made through that board was that we would have steps for the deputy treasurer and deputy clerk's position. There was a 5-step process, and we had the breakdown there. So that was approved at last year. This year, the worksheet in front of you shows you the numbers coming across, plus the cost of living. The cost of living was taken from the same place we typically get it. It's the Social Security. They have their chart every year for their cost of living. I thought it was interesting when I looked at that chart because it goes way back. Where did I see that? It was in July of 1980, the cost of living was 14.3, and in 81 it was 11.2. Otherwise, the numbers vary across it goes all the way back to 1975, but 5.9% was the figure that was used. But the worksheet that I gave you shows how those numbers were arrived. The other change was the titles to the position, and that was done mostly in response to the last election. State law allows a treasurer and a clerk to appoint a deputy treasurer and a deputy clerk, and a lot of townships have moved to a situation where they allow those people to be actual employees of the township. So then in the event of election, if you were to have a sweep in the election, you keep some of the experience in the office. As close as Groveland does it, several townships through Oakland County does it. They do receive a stipend. The newly elected official can appoint a deputy treasurer or a deputy clerk, and it can be somebody different than the person sitting in that position currently, but they would remain as clerks and treasurers. Somebody brought up a fact that some of the people in the other townships may have more responsibilities. I know when we looked at the salaries and did the study, Holly Township will still be in the bottom 3 for the county. As close as Springfield, the salaries are higher. You get into Independence and Orion. As the townships get bigger and the budgets get bigger and there's more people, the salaries go up. At the same time, when you get into places like Orion and Independence, they also have administrative aides. They have deputy supervisors in those townships that actually fulfill a job. So there are more staff involved as well. One thing I was surprised by was that Groveland Township, Groveland and Rose we most closely align with budget-wise, Groveland Township still has a pension program. We don't have that here, so we don't have any legacy costs. They keep their pension program funded. They do have that, so there's a different pay structure. And they also pay each one of their employees whatever the state allows for medical, that number for the medical health care. I think it's something like $1,700 that goes into a medical health savings plan. Each one of their employees gets that as well. So there are different ways that some of the different townships do that payment. But that was the directive for this. So those are the two things. The rest of the budget is pretty much a rollover from last year. You will notice as we go forward, looking at building a new office, we've got some budget transfers that will be coming next month. As an example, the money that came from Dawson Tire when they bought the fire hall, that will get transferred into here. The money from the real estate sale tonight will get transferred into capital improvements. The intent is that we are able to build that building without having to finance any of it. I did look into today, we can also take money from the building department for a portion of the building that is the building department. So I think we're going to be in pretty good shape looking forward at being able to fund that new building when it comes down. Are there any questions or discussion?
What are the cost center totals? How do they arrived at?
Karen or Mark?
Well, if you look at your, the list breaking down, that's the cost center. You do it, this one, Steve.
Okay.
Okay, so those are the individuals, and then each cost center, we adopt by cost center.
Okay.
So that you're not monitoring each individual line item through the year.
Gotcha.
And so, which is a
Okay.
real pain, so.
Yeah.
So you only adopt them in the resolution by the cost center.
Okay.
And then you'll see it every month in your revenue and expense report.
Got it.
Okay, on here, it says rename account to, as an example, Clerk's Department Administrator
What
1.
page are you on?
Salaries, salaries, hours, and
Page
per
2.
diem rates.
So everybody can be on the same page.
Right. So the fourth one down, just
Okay.
to use as an example, Deputy Clerk, rename account to Clerk's Department Administrator 1. So that changes the title, but what about the actual employment status? Is that changing?
Yes, and becomes a township employee instead
Right.
of an appointed,
Right.
yes.
So what this does then is an example, the deputy treasurer renames the account to Treasury Department Administrator 1. So I'm retiring October 31st. A new treasurer will be appointed. What you're saying is that treasurer cannot now hire a deputy treasurer.
Yes, they can, but it's just
They're not going
by
to get paid
stipend.
anything. What are they going to get paid? You're not even budgeting any money for it.
No, it's
Yes,
budgeted.
it's the administrator, yes, it's the
title
same, it's just a
administrator.
title change in making them an employee so that in an election, you don't sweep out all of the people that work for Holly Township.
If you go back
Okay,
to
so a
the,
new treasurer gets appointed. And they want to appoint their own deputy treasurer. What happens to the person that's currently in that position?
They stay.
Yeah, that's not going to work.
Why wouldn't it work?
Because you're creating another new position.
no, they
Okay,
just,
the person, okay, let's say we appoint Steve as the new treasurer, as for example. And he appoints, by Michigan compiled law, he has the sole authority and is required to hire a deputy treasurer. He does. What's that person's salary?
it's right here in the,
It's the treasurer's
It's a
department
stipend,
administrator.
right.
it's a
salary.
stipend for
So
the
it can
position.
be it can be that person that
But
works
what if that's
in
not
your-
what they want? You're forcing them to accept the existing deputy treasurer, and that's contrary to Michigan compiled law.
It's not contrary, it works because other townships have done it. The whole point is,
I'm not saying other townships haven't done it. I'm
It's-
talking about Holly Township.
but you,
Well, but you
but you're
don't wanna
talking two things. You're
lose
saying it's
your-
illegal. It's not illegal.
I'm not
So-
saying it's illegal. I'm saying Michigan compiled law authorizes the treasurer to hire a deputy treasurer.
And you do-
You're setting this up so that they can still do it, but this person's only going to get a stipend.
That's what they,
And they're forced to accept the person that is still serving as the deputy treasurer,
And-
treasurer deputy
and
administrator.
who has the experience, yes, to protect the township and
No,
the
no,
township's
it's, what it's doing,
investment.
Karen, let's be honest, it's protecting the person that's in the position. That's what you're trying to accomplish here.
No.
There
I've
was
been
no,
wa-
there was no prior discussion. What does this have to do
We've
with the
talked about
budget?
it for years.
What does this have to do with the budget?
Well, and that's why we brought it up tonight. It can be discussed.
Okay, I see it as, again, you're trying to sneak something through buried in the budget. Because that should have, changing these,
If we were trying to sneak it through, I wouldn't have mentioned it. I mentioned it right up front.
it's not obvious what you're trying to accomplish. I can see what you're trying to accomplish. You're trying to protect people that are already currently working, because if somebody new gets elected and they decide they want a new deputy, they can appoint them. And that person, by state law, their employment ends when the treasurer, as an example, when the treasurer's employment ends, so does the deputy treasurer's. Then the new treasurer chooses who they want for a deputy treasurer at the full salary.
So the deputy clerk has been here at the township, and the township has invested in her for 16 years. So a new person
And that
coming in.
person's got all that experience.
Right, could come in, and most likely, because there's a contentious election, they're running against you, they win, they come in, they sweep out the one with the 16 years of experience and bring someone on that has none. It could be a devastating effect in the township, and that it's no
I don't know,
longer
the
appropriate to do
township's
that.
been doing that since day one. I haven't seen anything devastating happen.
Well, just because it didn't happen, but it was close last year, or in 2020. And it would seriously affect the township.
Last year's probably
And
the
that's
first
not-
time the
that's not
election's ever
fiscally
been that
responsible.
close.
So when you're running for a public office, you know that if you're elected, you know at the next election, you could not be reelected. You know that. And the deputies know that if the treasurer or the clerk does not get reelected, that they lose their job too. They know that going in. It's not like they're oblivious to that. So there should be no expectation unless they are an employee of the township, because the deputy clerk and the deputy treasurer are appointed positions. They are appointed. And that's why they're not considered an employee
And
of just
that's
the
why,
township.
because there's such a hiring problem right now with these positions. That's why many of the townships are moving to this format, so that the experience stays with the township, and you still, by state law, get to appoint a deputy treasurer. Groveland's done it, Orion's done
But
it,
it's,
many of the townships have
it's a
done it.
hood ornament. They get paid some stipend. It doesn't mean anything.
Right, but
they
it's-
can sign stuff.
It's keeping the experience in the township, and that's why other
It's
township
keeping
boards
that
have done it.
position, it's keeping that person in that position.
Correct.
Okay, so you end up with a clerk's department administrator 1. Okay? Who do they report to?
The treasurer, or the clerk, I'm sorry. The treasurer administrative one would
It's
report to the still part of
Your
that department.
So the treasurer can still terminate them if they want to,
No, they
because
have
we're
to
an
both.
we're an at-will employer. You can be terminated for no reason, for any reason and no reason. It's right in our policies and procedures.
But there's more extensive legalities to those terms. We're dealing with that at the fire authority.
We just spent a bunch of money having our policies and procedures done by a human resource company so that's what it says.
Well,
It says that everybody, that they're an
Should be a
at-will
reason.
employer. They're an at-will employee. They can be terminated for
right,
any
but you
any
still
reason
have,
and no reason.
well, but we all know it doesn't work that, because every time that happens, they go file a lawsuit and they get a settlement. There has to be a process. The other townships, everybody's moving toward this. It made sense to do this because it protects the experience within the township. So
Now,
that's why I brought it forward.
I would say that you should have scheduled a budget workshop just to discuss that.
Well, we're discussing it right now.
Sure, but we're supposed to vote on it tonight.
Okay, but a budget workshop, you wouldn't have voted on it. You
We
would
wouldn't
had
have
the
voted,
discussion,
but
so you
all
can-
of this discussion we're having now, we could have hashed out then.
Well, we can still have the conversation, then when we're done, decide which way we're going on it. That would have been the only thing we would have discussed a separate
I can't
workshop.
support that.
And
I
in
just
a-
can't support this. And I can see under the surface what the real intent is here. I can see that. And so I absolutely cannot support this, and I won't. And I think you should have called a budget workshop, and you didn't. I think that, to me, that generates suspicion, like, why didn't you? We've had one every year that I've been treasurer. This year we didn't, except during the pandemic, which we couldn't. So, I can't support it.
Okay. And this also goes back to something we've had discussion, at least from my point of view, since 2012. If we had a 7-member board, then the 3 elected officials could work as an administrative team, and this conversation could be had. Unfortunately, the conversation's had between Karen and I. Some topics go between you and I, depending on what they are. Like when we did the funding for the fire equipment in-house. Unfortunately, the 3 of us can never sit down and have that kind of conversation, at which point we could then bring it to the board and let the board discuss it. We can't do that. I am still an advocate for a 7-member board. As Holly Township grows, we're looking at 1,000 new units coming into the township. And when I say units, I'm talking about living space, whether they be homes, condos, or apartments. As this township grows, it's very frustrating and it's very difficult to run a township when you can't, I can talk to you and I can't talk to her. I can talk to her and I can't talk to you. It would be really nice if we could have an administrative meeting to discuss this stuff. Then you bring it to the board when there's 4 members. If you remember last time at that budget hearing when we discussed that whole salary contract, we had differences of opinion. And at one point in that meeting, I turned and I said, both to Trustee Ruth and Trustee Burton, I said, you guys need to step up and give some opinions, because this argument here will never end. And Mr. Ruth spoke up and Mr. Burton struck up, and we put that in there. I would love to see us put it on the ballot to go to a 7-member board. I think that's where this township needs to go. I have felt that way since we did the petition drive in 2012. The voters voted it down back then by less than 200 votes, I think it was. And
It goes on the ballot every 10 years, doesn't it?
Mm-mm.
Thought it did.
No, when it reaches a certain amount of registered,
what you're talking about is
Yeah.
the Charter Township portion,
yeah.
which we
Yes.
voted down.
Well, and because Charter Township requires a 7-member board.
Yes.
Right.
If you
But I'm saying-
become a Charter Township, you have to have a 7-member.
I know, but you were saying every 10 years, that's what the
That's what that is.
that's what the census triggered.
Right. Okay, well, how about Code Enforcement Officer Project Coordinator? So this position now is no longer assistant to the supervisor.
No, that's a
Is that what you're
mistake.
saying?
No, I made a mistake on that. I must have used an older resolution. So that doesn't change. Although that's what she does.
Well, it says Code Enforcement Assistant 2. Did that just cut it off?
Yeah,
Because it says Assistant 2, it just doesn't finish it.
I'm looking at
Here? Oh,
Section
and you're on-
6.
You're on a different page.
Yep, I'm still on the same
7
page.
member.
Yep, Code Enforcement Officer / Project Coordinator. And then,
Oh, it does. It
and the
changed.
positions,
Yeah.
and the position's paying almost $4,000 a year more than the deputy treasurer.
and
Yeah,
that
it's-
was the
but it's
step
not a-
that was a step process that was agreed to by the board last year.
When does the deputy treasurer meet her next step? What's your seniority
There-
at this point?
Yes, I understand that. But you're just taking into consideration steps, or you're taking into consideration length of service. When we were going through that process, and I spoke directly with, I forget the gentleman's name, but
Steve Williams.
Steve,
Williams,
yes.
Yeah.
And I said, doesn't education level play an important factor into this? He said yes. The current deputy treasurer has a master's degree. There's nobody else in the office that has a master's degree. Nobody.
But it's not a master's degree in finance.
It's a master's degree in public administration.
Oh, okay.
So you're
Well,
going,
as the
again,
as-
I just don't see
As
the
the-
logic to that. I don't see how that is justified.
as-
Because that position isn't even an appointed position.
as-
Where the deputy clerk and deputy treasurer, those are appointed positions. And they
Okay.
actually have to take an oath of office.
In the last budget, it was approved to do the 5-step measure, and you as the treasurer can come forward and to the board and make an argument for giving that employee a step increase. Am I correct?
So I can ask,
Right. okay.
sure. I probably wouldn't get it. It would get voted down.
Well,
I'm just basing that on past history, recent past history. Anyways, so it says here, Code Enforcement Officer / Project Coordinator. Is that going to be the title or not?
No.
no, she just said it wasn't.
So scratch that.
The one that's in the budget is the correct one.
Right.
So it's still
That was
assistant
that was her
to
old-
supervisor.
That was her old
That was,
title.
Roger Welch's title,
Yeah.
Well, no, and then we combined those two for
right.
her. So it was her title for a while.
Okay. So that position's still going to report to the supervisor.
Yes, code enforcement always has, hasn't it?
No.
No.
No, it always has since I came in. I was told it did. Who did it
No.
used to report to?
Me.
Oh,
Because of the zone, she was the zoning administrator.
when did it change?
When you created the assistant to the supervisor position.
No, because she was reporting to me before that. When I came into office, I
You
was
came
told she
into
reported.
office in 2016.
And I
That
was-
changed the next June of 2017. You weren't even in office a year when that changed.
I know, that's not what I'm talking about. Before Pat and I came into office, you made her the code enforcement officer. When I came into office in 2016, I was told she answered to me. So I started with her right off the bat. You guys made a bunch of changes the month before we came in. One of them was moving Roger to something and putting Amy in that position. Because when I came in, she answered to me.
It's 2 part-time jobs.
It was part-time code
Yeah.
enforcement officer. Roger
What-
was just a project coordinator, and we were just assigning him specific.
Right. But I'm just saying,
projects.
when I came into office, she reported to me as the code enforcement officer. So I don't know who the code enforcement officer reported to before. I don't know who made that change. I'm just telling you, when I came into office, I was told she reports to me. So that's how that was there. And then it was a year later that I added or changed the title.
I would move to approve the 2022-2023 proposed budget and appropriations, proposed resolution 2022-12 with the change to code enforcement officer and project coordinator back to what it's supposed to be, project or code enforcement officer and assistant to the supervisor.
Oh. Motion by Clerk Winchester. Is there support? I will support. Any further discussion?
I just think we need to talk this out more, because I'm confused right now.
All right, well, go ahead. This is the time to do it.
Well, we got a motion on
Yeah, now
the table
discussion.
right now, so.
Well,
And then now we're in
that's the time for
discussion.
discussion. The
After
motion can
and
go
the
up or
second,
down.
Then you go into discussion.
Okay, really, my discussion would go around the code enforcement officer slash project, or not slash project, assistant to the supervisor. Because I don't understand how that transpired,
How, what transpired?
the reporting level, and what this means here.
It's been like that since 17.
Has it? Okay.
Mhm.
No, that's not the question he's asking. The title, Code Enforcement / Assistant to the Supervisor, came about in 2017. What Steve, I heard him ask, was the reporting issue. I don't know how she was made to report to me. That's just what I was told when I came in.
I don't
That's
think she
fine.
reported to you until July 1st of 17, when it went into effect.
Well, I can tell you differently. I can show you the file, because I was told to do that.
No, she doesn't work in my department, so
No, I
I don't have
understand.
any detailed knowledge.
I mean, when I came into office, you told me I was in charge of the building. I've never seen that written anywhere legally, but you told me supervisor's in charge of the building. You used to write notes and stick them on my computer that it was time to change the filter. I don't know where that came from, but it was okay. I did it.
If you read Michigan compiled law, the red book from MTA, it tells you what the statutory responsibilities of the supervisor are.
Right?
And we've discussed this before, and they're fairly limited, especially compared to the clerk and the treasurer.
Correct.
There's nothing in that compiled law that says specifically that the supervisor is in charge of the buildings.
Correct.
All the time prior to you being elected supervisor, the supervisor supervised the township assets such as either land or buildings. Doesn't mean that they went in and swept the floor.
No, I
Means
understand.
they made sure that the facilities were maintained. The things that I gave to you were reminders because you were new, and I was trying to help you see the maintenance things that
No.
needed to be done.
I understand. I have no problem with
And
it.
then as you
I'm just saying.
gained
because-
experience, then I stopped because it's your responsibility.
No, I understand.
Okay.
I'm saying it, and I took it. The statement I'm making is, I don't know where it came from. It's just the stuff I was told when I came through the door, so I did it. I made a file for Amy when I first came in, and it was one of my first files. I don't know how the assignment, I don't know if the assignment was ever written anywhere, that it reported there and reported back. I know that there's an inner working between the code enforcement in your office and my office on many topics. We have those discussions quite often. Where they started from or how they got deemed fact, I don't know the answer to that. That's in response to your question.
Also then, just to clarify, the new clerk administrator and treasurer administrator and code enforcement officer get paid the amount shown here
Yes,
by the township. It's not an elected position.
right.
Correct. Okay.
Right.
But if a new person came in, then they would plug into this schedule.
Correct. No, they would,
Plug into that title.
right.
They plug into the title, but they have to jump onto this,
That's not the steps.
isn't this the steps?
No.
It shows the minimum, midpoint, and maximum,
I know,
but those aren't the actual steps.
well, because our board decided 5 steps.
Right.
Those-
But I'm saying,
Yeah,
if a new person gets hired or appointed, they're going to start at the beginning of those steps.
actually, we had that discussion. We had this discussion at the time. If you hired in a new person for the deputy treasurer, and they came from another municipal treasury position, then the board could say, this new hire could come in at level 4 or 5 based on experience. The board said, for example, Pam Masick moved, she was the clerk for Groveland for 20 years, and she moved, her and her husband moved to Holly. If at that time we were looking for a new deputy clerk and she was hired in, you could justify bringing her in at level 4 or level 5 if the board decided. It's up to the board to do that. If the board's bringing somebody in and is hiring someone to help train them and is appropriating funds to train that person and they have to lead, then they bring them in at a different level. That's always up to the board. But the levels was part of the budget talk last year, and it was a combination of, nobody got everything they wanted at that last one. Trustee Ruth got some of what he wanted, Trustee Burton got some, I melded it all together, I presented it, everybody discussed it, voted on it, and accepted it.
And we hired an HR firm, so it wasn't us.
And we have the
doing
salary study,
the
and
study,
then,
right.
last year, and I said, we won't give the full amount to the elected officials. We'll wait another year, see how the revenue does, if the increase comes. And our revenue sharing has gone from 400,000 to over 600,000 for the next year. And our assessed
That's
values.
because the census was in 2020.
Right, and it moved us
And
into,
our,
took us over 12,000.
well, our increase as a percentile was pretty significant.
Yeah.
The increase in our population.
So,
It was.
yeah. So we've taken 3 years to implement this, but this is the final step. And we've done this without raising taxes. It fits within the budget. We haven't had to cut any services. We haven't had to change anything.
Okay, on this second page here of the aligned positions,
Uh-huh.
the deputy clerk and treasurer are named deputy clerk, not administrators there. And their salaries are the same.
But this was created on
This
July
report-
1st of 2020.
Up at the top.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the same study we've used for the 3 years. I don't have the sheet where we had the 5. I don't have the sheet where the 5 steps are
Five steps,
represented. there any other discussion? Somebody's phone buzzing. Okay. None appearing, roll call, please.
Steve Ruth?
No.
Karen Winchester?
Yes.
What is this one? Mark Freeman?
No.
George Cullis?
Yes. So it's 2-2, motion does not pass, so we go back to discussion. So what would you like to see changed, Mr. Ruth? I say Mr. Ruth because we've already heard Mark.
Right. Okay, I really don't have an issue with the deputy, or the administrative renaming those. I don't understand your comment either, but the code enforcement officer. Why wouldn't that be the same rate as either of the administrators?
If you look at the budget for 2021-22, which we approved last year, you will see that the deputy treasurer's salary then was $42,867, and the code enforcement was $45,400. Those salaries only increased by cost of living, which is in that chart that I gave you.
And the salary study had the code enforcement officer and assistant at a lesser rate to begin with.
It's at
So
a
that was
lesser
the
rate.
lowest, right.
It
That
is
was
a
the
lesser
lowest.
rate,
Yeah.
but she's at a
So
higher
she didn't-
step.
Right.
Well,
16
because
years,
of length of service?
length of service and experience, yes.
Okay, so length of service, but how much of that service was it part-time?
Well, it was doing code enforcement.
I understand that, but if it's part-time, length of service at part-time certainly doesn't have the same significance as length of service at full-time. And that code enforcement position was part-time until 2017. That's when it went to a full-time.
Total
There
hours?
was two,
or
no, there was,
total-
we've already had this discussion numerous times. There was two part-time positions. They were combined into a full-time position.
In 2017?
In 2017.
but he's talking about
That's
before
exactly
that.
what I said. But everything
Right,
prior to
but-
2017, the current assistant to the supervisor worked part-time. I don't know how many years, you could verify that, but it was at part-time. It
There
was
was a
not,
lot of years full-time. She was my
Only
deputy, full-time. She did building, special projects. That was
okay.
just about full-time. So it was a short amount of time.
Well, the answer, Mr. Ruth, to your question is the salary for the code enforcement / assistant to the supervisor was entered last year when we entered the step system, and she was being paid more then as she is now, and it's just a matter of cost of living that's taken it up there. Now, if the deputy treasurer, if the treasurer wants to submit to move her up a step, he certainly can do that. I think just based on time when I asked you, she's been here 3 years, which, because if you remember, the steps were 2-year increments. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and the treasurer could approve them for the step, or they could deny them for the step if they weren't doing well. That was up to the treasurer, that was up to the clerk, depending on which one we were looking at. So that can certainly be addressed with the treasurer submitting and requesting for a step increase. I think the automatic step, I think the automatic step increase comes at
The next year.
the 4-year. I don't know what her anniversary date is.
It's December 1st.
Oh, okay,
So December 1st, she'll have 4 years.
okay.
But she may not still be here.
Well. Do you have any other questions?
No. All set.
Okay, we want to start that motion over? I turned it over.
Why would you make the motion again when there were no changes?
Well,
Because he got his questions answered.
Yeah, I'm satisfied now.
Okay,
I would move to approve Resolution 2022-12, Holly Township 2022-2023 General Appropriations Act and Budget.
is there support?
Support.
Motion by Winchester, support by trustee Ruth. Roll call, please.
Karen Winchester,
Yes.
Mark Freeman,
No.
Steve Ruth,
Yes.
George Cullis,
Yes. Motion carries 3-1. That moves us on to the second public comment on any topics. Is there someone for public comment? Eileen, welcome.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Hello, board members. And I'm Eileen Colwell. I'm currently an Oakland County Commissioner. I'm running for re-election in the newly drawn 7th Commission District. So I'm out today to say hi to everybody. I'm getting to know Holly Township and Holly Village a lot better. And I just wanted to let you know that it would be my distinct honor to represent you to the county, to help you with county issues. And also, you know, being a state representative, I also do maintain a lot of state contacts as well with the legislature, departments, boards, commissions, and whatnot. And I'd be happy to help with those as well, if you ask me to help. Otherwise, I won't butt in. But I just wanted to say hi today, and I'll just make a note on my going door to door. I'd like to say be careful what you might end up with when you go door to door. It could be a puppy. I knocked on the door of a foster care for puppies.
Nasty wonder puppy.
And I now have a little black lab puppy. But anyway, I'm hoping to represent you come 2023.
Eileen, I missed your last name.
Cowell, Kowall.
Cool.
Yep. Thank you. Oh, and we did take up, just so you know, 2 resolutions to do with the sewer district today in finance for the 10 million of ARPA.
That was the meeting after this one?
No, at the county, we had a finance committee meeting.
So which meeting was it, the one I had up here?
Oh, I came in late, so I didn't see it.
Oh, that's we had that meeting there, yeah. Where Alyssa Slotkin spoke?
At the finance committee meeting? At the county?
There were 2 meetings today.
Okay.
One was at 9:30,
Oh, that was economic development.
economic development,
Right.
and then your meeting was later,
Yeah.
and you
Way
adopted it as well, is what?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
okay.
But I just wanted to let you, maybe give you a little bit of heads up that there is some thoughts going on in our chair's mind right now, perhaps maybe not so much an outright, ARPA funds grant, but it could morph into more of a loan. So that possibility lays out there, so I thought I'd just give you a little heads up.
How do you loan ARPA funds?
Well, he started talking about, we have a lot of need for this kind of thing in the county in general.
Who's he?
Our chair, Dave Woodward.
Dave Woodward, okay.
Right.
There were a lot of men in that meeting, that's why I say, who's he?
Yeah, right. So I just wanted to throw that out there. We'll be taking that up this, a week from tomorrow at our next board meeting, so we'll see how it goes.
Okay.
Stay tuned. Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment? Richard? Oh, Mary? Let Mary go. He said let you go first. Come on, Mary.
Mary Blanchard,
as much discussion as was involved in this, and some of it negative. It deserved more attention. It also deserved to have a budget workshop, as Treasurer Mark Freeman had stated. I also would like to speak on the Holly Hawk Road dump, as well as the Holly Hills Manufactured Home Community. This week I had contacted the project manager, Kim Etheridge, from Eagle. She sent me the work plan that had been designated with the $100,000 funding from the state of Michigan. It was quite a lengthy list. I did ask her. I am wondering if this work plan has been shared with other agencies and all divisions with Eagle. Have municipalities and other government officials been notified? It is obvious that there is still much that is not known regarding the dump and possible. Thank you. Sorry. You're fine. And possible interaction to water and site impact of surrounding residences, including Holly Hills Manufactured Home Community, the Shiawassee River, as well as Rice and Bush Lakes. I do not believe Lacey and Allen Lakes have been studied, but they are in the direct path of effluent discharge from the Holly Hills Manufactured Home Community wastewater treatment plant. Proceeding with the manufactured home community expansion without knowing the current and future implications of contamination to drinking water, surface water, and groundwater is dangerous and wrong. I realize that RRD, which is remediation and redevelopment, is not responsible for the manufactured home community, but the Holly community will have to live with the consequences of all the decisions being made regarding this whole area, not just the Falk Road dump. The community has been asking for assurance that all agencies and divisions within Eagle are sharing the information each has on their involvement in this entire area. Have there been meetings involving the agencies and divisions of Eagle taking place that we have not been informed of? Our state elected have stated that they are asking about these meetings, but we have heard only about the meeting held by Senator Ruth Johnson that seemed to concern only the Falk Road dump. Our group would like to know about the interactions between all agencies and divisions of Eagle. Please advise if we need to FOIA that information. Kim, thank you for the work you do and all the staff people copied on this email. After being involved in this issue for 2.5 years, being involved with MPART 1.5 years, and reviewing boxes of documents from agency staff, government officials, and residents back to the 1980s and 90s, I recognize how complicated this entire situation is. We would be happy to share any documents so that current staff can understand the grave concerns expressed by staff from multiple agencies elected at all levels and residents. We may be seeing the effects now that we're warned about in these documents. Her response to me was, this work plan is to address the Part 201 site, the Falk Road dump, using state funding that is only authorized for use at the site. This is the very beginning of RRD's evaluation of the complex hydrogeology and has limited funding. The scope of work will be shared when Eagle RRD assigns the funding and gets started. We will go from there. Thanks.
All right, thank you.
I also have a response from Denise Travick-Pointer, who is the toxic and remediation specialist. She had questions for Kim after the original email. How did you choose the additional monitoring well locations? Was it by using a conceptual site model or other partial profile from previous reports and discussions? Can you please share the map of proposed locations and/or any map or groundwater profile used to determine their location? As we've discussed in the past, there are indications in historic documents that PCB might have been disposed of in the dump and that used oil was likely used to suppress dust in the past. It would seem to me to be easy to test soil from well installations near or within the dump and relatively inexpensive to include PCB in the analysis in locations where it might be present in the soil. Can you provide reasoning as to why you did not include PCB in soil analysis? Since the dump is currently assumed to be the source of PFAS found in groundwater, why would the work plan not include an assessment of PFAS levels in soil samples during well installation? Just looking for the logic behind not wanting to assess the likely source of PFAS contamination found in groundwater. The community has spent time and money trying to determine the movement of PFAS from surface water, flooding, and movement onto surface soils. Drinking water is obviously not the only or even the most likely route of exposure for people living near the dump. There are recent studies that indicate movement of PFAS impacted particulates and dust even into homes is also a major potential way in which people might be exposed. We provided the surface soil PFAS results to RRD in hopes that the work plan might include follow-up surface and soil location testing. Filling in gaps in current information could help explain how the activities from the MHP expansion is impacting the movement of PFAS through surface water flooding and how to control it. Surface soils are also likely to continue leaching PFAS into the nearby rice and bush lakes. Knowing the extent and path of the contamination would be helpful to the community so that they would propose and impose methods to control surface soil erosion and movement. What is the reasoning for not including at least some surface soil sampling in the scope of work?
Mary, are you just about done?
Yes. There may be more questions based on your responses, and others CC'd on this email might have additional questions.
All right. Thank you for your comment.
I would also like to point out that the manufactured home community has had at least 8 manufactured homes delivered to their site. There are still a limited, very limited amount of information known at this point on the hydrogeology. I don't want this to be something that years down the line we're going to be coming back to this board and saying you had a chance right now to help with this. I would also like to say that I think, as trustees said, Treasurer Freeman said, with the work study, we would have also known that this was a step process as far as the raises, because that was not explained in the documents that were given with the agenda. Thank you.
Patrick.
Pat Feeney, 210 Franklin Street. Well, first, I'll give you credit. That's the first time you didn't call a special meeting when disposing of property. I think that's, financially smart. You don't call a meeting, especially when the public can't attend. So I'm happy to see that. Question. I'm not an expert at parliamentary procedure, but isn't discussion done? And when
Pat,
you take a vote?
Raise the microphone up.
Is not discussion done when you go to take a vote? It doesn't matter if you had another question. You take the vote, that's it. In the end, I don't think it would matter because I think Mr. Root would have been persuaded later on to vote for it anyway, so I don't think it really, but the point is, parliamentary, I do believe that you're a pretty good expert on that, Supervisor. Discussion was ended. But besides the point, so you did add 2 positions. Basically now we're gonna have an administrative position, and if the future treasurer or clerk decides to add a deputy, that's new positions, more money. What have you done? Where is the workload that is coming upon you? And once again, you had a budget with an error in it. I mean, come on. Workshop, we might have caught that at a workshop, you know, that error in it. We've had that time and time again when I was on the board. Error here, error there. Your last meeting, you had to make up for an error because you didn't hold a public hearing when you gave a tax break. How long do you go? I mean, then you're going to raise your salaries? Come on now, guys. You know, you're in HR training film. This would be great to watch, to listen to you guys, babble on about this, that, and everything else. It's just disgusting. You know, that you can sit there with a straight face and say you deserve more. I'm not talking about the hourly employees. I can set those aside because that, you know, they're hardworking. I'm talking about you elected officials. You accepted pay raises for what? Your burden's increased? It has not. This township does not provide a lot to its citizens. And yet you think there's more. And last but not least, you know, let's don't get too far gone with the bandwagon. The sewer project, our interest was in, the end was for Shannon. They started a project thinking they could do it on well water, which didn't seem to make sense to me to begin with. You got a large manufacturer and you need water. Fantastic, you help a business out. I don't believe they deserve the tax breaks because I don't think they're preventing the benefit to the community as great as you so amply told us it did. In the end, the corridor, that's great. It helps that along. The parks, but that came afterwards. You know, that's going to benefit the parks. That wasn't the original start to it. And the one thing missing out of this, what about the citizens? What's going to be the hookup? Where is the plan to add that to them? Offer it to them. Kind of got lost in the shuffle there, didn't it? And quite frankly, I'm glad for the Congresswoman that we got the money. But she has 15 projects each year she gets. Did we miss out there in her tenure, or did I miss out on what projects did we see? So out the door, here's a project to you. You know, thanks. You know, but you should be ashamed of yourselves because, you know, quite frankly, by your own admission, the way you guys talk, you know, it's like just one doesn't know after 6 years how they became in charge of somebody. You know, another one can't get the basics down to their job where we're, you know, last meeting we're questioning when the next meeting date is. I mean, if it was a once in a while thing, you know, I seem to remember a wellhead protection program that Mr. Engelger can remember as we were on the planning commission that passed and didn't come before this board till a year later. Really? And then, but we deserve more money. Comparing yourself to independents in Springfield townships? Nonsense. I see my time's up, so I'll let you go because we know we wouldn't want to keep you earning any more of your pay.
Thank you for your comment. Anyone else for public comment?
Randy Finkbeiner, 15335 Catalina Way in Holly Township. I just have a question. I'm not sure it can get answered, but I'm not understanding on the budget here. Department 101, caption 101-101-702-000. It says salaries. Under Department 101, it says Township Board. Is that the salary for the whole board? It's not explained.
That's the trustees.
It doesn't say that. Is that one trustee or is that split amongst the two trustees? It doesn't say that.
Two trustees.
It's the two trustees.
So they split the $7,200 then. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. But it just, the way it's worded here, somebody reading it with me, I didn't put it together. I had no idea what you're talking about. It doesn't say trustees. It says board. You're the board.
Well, it's a budget and it's a line item to cover that expense.
Correct. But nowhere in there does it say a trustee. Anywhere on this whole page, there's not a trustee anywhere. I think that's a detail that maybe public would like to see. Because we
Okay.
identified a supervisor's salary, we identified the treasurers, we identified the clerks, we even identified assistants and deputies. Nobody, and I'm assuming he's here without, he's been elected, but he's not here for free. So, yeah, I think those kind of details are important. So when we're reading this, or if it gets out in print, we know who they talking about. So, just an observation. Thank you.
Mhm. Anyone else for public comment?
Richard Kinnaman, 4151 Stonebridge, here speaking on behalf of the Holly Area Chamber of Commerce. We have 2 events coming up in the next week. The first one is tomorrow night, concerts in the park. The Chamber has taken those on this year, and the first concert is tomorrow night in Crapo Park, 6:30, beginning with the high school jazz band, and then a headliner jazz band following them. Bring your lawn chair and come enjoy the heat. It's supposed to actually cool off in the evening tomorrow, so come for a good evening. The other event is Saturday the 25th. We will be hosting a concert, food truck rally, beer tent in the Holly Foods parking lot as a North End event, and free to the public. Come buy some food, enjoy an evening with country music. Headliner for that is Alan Turner, and we have an opener as well that's a local young man. So come have a good time in Holly.
Okay. Anyone else for public comment? Before I close the meeting, Harvey and Eileen, I want to see both of you, so don't scoot out the door before I catch up with you. All right? I will close the meeting at 8:02.